In this lesson, we will set up the Redshift AOVs. So let's go to the output context. Remember that we created a Redshift AOV node in the first lesson. So right now we need to add a couple of AOVs. I will start adding them one by one. So first we have beauty, which I would like to have also alpha. Then we have the specular, for example. Let's go with emission for now. Then we have refractions. I think we should do also puzzle mats. And for puzzle mats, I would like to go with the material IDs. So I have ID 1, 2, and 3. So 1 would be red, green would be 2, 2 will be green, and 3 will be blue. We also need to, let's open up actually another panel, and we go to the materials. And you see here, if I select the material, we have a material ID. So I would say the sphere can be red. I'm sorry, Houdini just crashed, so let's go back to where we were. I said that the sphere can be red, and the lines can be green, so 2, and the emission, the primitive can be blue. So we have sphere 1, lines 2, and the primitives, both of them 3. Now what we need also reflection. We need another beauty that will have a light group, and it will be called background light. So remember, this was the light that for the background that we added here. So let's just copy that, make sure that is the right name. And I think let's also add normals, and also I can go inside the material, the sphere one. Remember that we had this mask. I can export the mask separately in a new AOV. The node is called store color to AOV, and I need to plug in the beauty, then go to the surface and take the CD of the sphere, plug into AOV input 1, and I need to give it a name, and say mask. And this name I just copy, go into the output, create a custom AOV, and instead of custom we just put mask, so it should work. Now what we need to do is to go into the Redshift output. It's the same heap folder. I have another subfolder called render. I can also go and say $OS, and again $OS and frame number with 4 digits. So I say sphere version 1, and it will create a subfolder with sphere version 1, and also the name will be sphere version 1. Also, what I have to do in order to have all the AOVs, I need to change the multi-layer DXR to per AOV multi-layered. So now we'll have one EXR file containing all the AOVs. I also need to link the Redshift AOVs with the sphere. So I just put everything here. Now let's tweak out the scene a bit. Redshift can be quite complicated to set up, but I have a few basic rules. So this unified sampling, it deals with depth of field and motion blur. Actually, let's enable motion blur. I need also mesh deformation, and maybe I need particles blur, I'm not sure. One thing that I need to keep in mind is that, especially for the lines, they have a velocity attribute probably, so we should enable this one. Maybe they don't use it, but just to enable it to be sure. Let's go back to this. So unified sampling should only work for motion blur and depth of field. So just a basic rule would be that if you have depth of field, you should use like this, like minimum sample 4 and maximum 1024. If we go back to the lights, on the top light you see here we have the sample of the light. So usually the light needs to have at least the double of the unified sampling samples. So the unified sampling has 1024. This should be like this. Also the bottom light, so they should be the same because they're doing almost the same thing. Maybe for the dome light, the samples are here. I'll go with 496 maybe to make sure that, because this is the main light source. And for the background light, I don't think we need any samples because the light is not doing anything. So if we go back here, we double this one at least. We should go to sample overrides. This is the easiest method. And we have reflection, refraction, and I think this is it. The lights we already tweaked. So we could also go inside each material to tweak this, but because we only have 3 materials and it's not an interior scene or something like that, we can just use these samples and they work pretty fine. So I'll put something like this in both of them. They work most of the time. And also for the global illumination, you see there's only 16, so I go with this. So I just make sure that each time I have at least double of these samples. And also change this to irradiance, maybe put GI bounces to 5 to have more GI probably. So I think this is everything that we need to worry about optimizing the scene right now. I will just save the scene and maybe fire up a render and go to bucket view to see how everything behaves. So Redshift has 2 render views. One is the live render and the other one is the bucket. Usually when you render final frames, use the bucket render. So let's go to around here. I think I need to refresh it. Okay. And for it to work properly, I need to switch to bucket. So right now you'll see the irradiance point cloud doing its thing, and then the bucket will render the scene. Right now we are on 720p resolution, and we also have here the passes. We can go and see the reflection, the refractions, the puzzle mat. Oh, I forgot about the specular. Yeah, we need to add the specular also. Let's go to the AOVs and add the specular. So specular lighting, and I think we have everything now. I just renamed this beauty to background light because they had exact same name and it was disabling one of them. And now we see also specular here. Yeah, so I think it looks really nice. Let's also bump up the resolution. After it will stop, we can hit override camera resolution. So say user specified and just 1080p. And I think we're set up for the final render. Okay, so to render this, what we need to do is to set the render frame range. One minor tweak would be just to maybe to scale down a bit the f-stop. I mean the depth of field, so we need to increase the f-stop. And of course I need to save the scene. And here we just hit render to disk and hope that everything works fine. So right now we see another window popping out, and we see the buckets rendering. They are rendering just the background right now because nothing's really happening at this point. So I will let the frames render and we'll jump into Fusion to make the final compositing. See you in the next one.